So after a very rocky start, 4-11 for the Denver Broncos, they have fired their head coach, Nathaniel Hackett. This is a big thing, as this is the shortest tenure of any non-interim head coach in Denver Broncos history. Their owner said, quote, "Moving forward, we will carefully evaluate every aspect of our football operations and make whatever changes are necessary to restore this franchise's winning tradition." There was no interim coach named as of the firing, but it's really simple. We have the number 1 scoring defense and the number 32nd last in scoring offense. This is the 7th consecutive year that the Denver Broncos have missed the postseason, and it makes a lot of sense why there was changes. Now remember, an old ownership group hired Nathaniel Hackett, and their thought process was, let's get the offensive coordinator from the Green Bay Packers to get Aaron Rodgers here. Aaron Rodgers decided that he was going to stay with the Green Bay Packers after a mega contract. And instead, Denver traded with the Seattle Seahawks to get Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson has been atrocious this season. He has 12 passing touchdowns on the year, and he just looks lost at times. Now, could it be the Nathaniel Hackett system? I'm going to lean more towards that than saying Russell Wilson is just completely awful all of a sudden. I don't think he's a top 10 quarterback anymore. I think he's reverting back to a 3rd-round draft pick, which is exactly what he was when he was drafted. People seem to forget that. Now, in this system, the Nathaniel Hackett offense seems to be a little too much for a Russell Wilson and the personnel. There is no reason why the Denver Broncos should not be able to score the ball when they have this incredible offensive weapons. I mean, looking at their depth chart, they have Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, Kendall Hilton if you want to include him, not including having KJ Hamler and Tim Patrick on IR, Javonte Williams who's on IR. Obviously, you have a quarterback in Russell Wilson. You should be able to move the ball and score points. There is no excuse to why this offense is only scoring 15.5 points per game. They're scoring 2 touchdowns a game. They just got embarrassed on Christmas Day, which is a huge reason why this firing probably happened today than any other reason. And they're going to face the Chiefs next week and end with the Chargers. I don't think that this Denver Broncos team is far away to the point that they're not going to be able to win games and be a playoff team, because obviously in 2023, I think they're going to make the playoffs with their roster. They have young defensive talent. As I said, they are leading the NFL. They're only giving up 20.3 points per game. So they'd be a very dominant team if their offense was able to score. Now, they don't have a first-round pick this year. They don't even have any of their first 3 picks of this year. They have a second from LA, which is going to be nice looking at it now. They have the Houston Texans 3rd-round pick. They have 2 4th-round. So they have the ability on days 2 and 3 of the NFL draft to really make a mark. But this Russell Wilson trade put them in a bad spot because they can't tank. And now all of a sudden they have to look for a new coach. The Russell Wilson experiment, I don't think it's going to be a failure. I think this was a failure of a year, obviously. But this Denver Broncos team is not far away from being a good team, and I don't think people understand that. They have a decent quarterback. At worst, you could say that Russell Wilson is probably a 20 to 25 best quarterback in the NFL. As I'm pulling up his numbers now, he has 12 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He has the 29th ranked QBR at 34.9. I don't think you could say, obviously, that this isn't on Russell Wilson, but I don't think you could really just say that's where the problem begins and ends. I think he has some rebuilding that he has to do in terms of relationships with his teammates and stuff of that nature. But this Denver Broncos team is going to be able to win going forward. I think this is essentially their rock bottom moment. And I don't think they're going to win next week against Kansas City. And it could potentially be a win if the Chargers are able to rest their players, clinching a playoff spot in the AFC wildcard. Right. Or in week 17, or 18, excuse me. But the big question is who's going to be the coach. Now, I don't think it's any coincidence that Sean Payton all of a sudden was making a coaching staff. Let me pull up the exact stuff. But a few days ago, Sean Payton eyed Vic Fangio to be his defensive coordinator upon a return. I don't think that's any surprise that news came out just 2 days after, 2 days before this firing happened. I think that was done for a reason. Now, would a Sean Payton coaching staff be able to help this Denver Broncos team? Yes, they're essentially the New Orleans Saints. They have an undersized quarterback that's going to be a Hall of Famer. They have a great defense. Now, just don't let Sean Payton be your GM, and you are set. I think Sean Payton is going to thrive in Denver if he is their next head coach. Obviously, we have to wait because we do not have any idea that he is going to be. But this Denver Broncos team is not too far away from being at least a wild card team. I mean, they have the pieces, and if Russell Wilson can go back to where he was originally, I'm not saying he has to be the guy who threw 40 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. If he could go back to throwing 30 touchdowns in a season and just being a good quarterback. This defense obviously has shown that they can dominate, and the offense can move the ball decently well. I just think if they can get a system where their offense is able to just get into field goal range and just score and just constantly get decent yardage to take pressure off their defense from being perfect every drive, this Denver Broncos team is a 9-8 team at worst. Now, it's not like this is going to be rocket science, but you have an 11-year book on Russell Wilson. They have the run game in Javonte Williams that's going to break tackles. Now, I would bench Russell Wilson right now. I don't think him starting is going to be the answer. I think you just tell Russell Wilson, hey, shut it down for the year. We understand that we don't have our pick, but we're not going to be able to do anything. And essentially just build it all up from scratch. Have him and Sean Payton sit in a room, say, hey, this is exactly what I need from you. Do this. We're going to build something that's going to elongate your career. Continue to help you, because Russell Wilson is not this bad. He's not a 12-touchdown quarterback after 13 games. He's not throwing a touchdown per game on average. This is not the Russell Wilson we're used to. I think that this team obviously should be a lot better. Maybe it's the Nathaniel Hackett first-year head coach over his head. Maybe it's Russell Wilson. Maybe it's both, which it most likely is. But I'm not going to finger point and say Russell Wilson is officially done and that this trade is all of a sudden going to be terrible, because that feels like too hot-takey of a situation. I think Russell Wilson is going to be able to bounce back in 2023 and have a good year. And this Denver Broncos team is going to be in contention for the AFC West in 2023 against these Chiefs and the Raiders and whichever 4 team I can't think of right now. But this really feels like the Chargers were the last team that I didn't include. But this Broncos team is good enough to win. How long is it going to take is the question. And I don't think you should be shocked by this Nathaniel Hackett news. I think it's just something that these owners just said, hey, this wasn't our guy to begin with. He's not showing any improvement. Get him out of here. Let's get someone experienced in that could prove to be a winner. Tell me what you guys are thinking in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next one.